I've been kind of looking forward to getting back to this one, this beauty with the 90% uneven frets. Let's take care of that, shall we? So here we go. Oh, that's helpful. Actually makes the job easier. Okay, first swipe, brush off the swarf and have a look. We've chopped some off pretty much every fret. I'm going to come back this way just to catch the last few here, which are hard to do. It's always hard to do the ones you begin with. Tend to get overlooked. Okay. Now at this point in time we can do a check and check that's unmistaken. Okay. Just checking everything we've marked up originally. Got one on the edge there. I'm just going to make an extra mark so I know to go back and do it. Oh, I can hear some owls. Right, just a little bit. Bit here to do. Now we've got what looks like a high spot, but actually it's a low spot here that's causing it, and we've got to keep going until we get that low spot out, which seems a bit of an extreme thing to do, but that's how it works, unfortunately, or fortunately. So I'm going to chop away until we get that low spot taken care of. And I think that's it. Right, good. We're done. Goodbye 90% uneven frets. Hello, nicely level frets. I have to say on this guitar there's a middling amount of metal left, so wouldn't want to do that too many times. Okay, actually, we've got guitars everywhere. Before I get rid of this one, I'm going to just go back over the top of each of these frets with marker pen, which is going to come in handy in the next stage, because in the next stage we're going to re-profile the fret, which means turning it from a fret with a flat top into a rounded fret again, like it was originally before we put this big flat spot on it. And the marker pen will help us to do that. And it will tell us when we've got when we finish reprofiling it and we've still got some black marker pen on top, we know that we haven't gone down any further than we need to. Right, okay, so having leveled the frets, now we're going to reprofile frets. So imagine we've got a nice flat top on the fret, and we're going to get a tool with a concave file, and we're going to cut away first of all at the edges of the square bit until it just about reaches the top, and we've reshaped it. And that's what this will do, and we'll know we've got there when we've got a very thin black line down the top of the fret. And this diamond edged file, or diamond coated file, does this really quickly and really efficiently. And we can see there's a little thin strip of black, and we'll stop. I'm just going to whisk down all of these. This is a really important step in turning our 90% of uneven frets into a lovely 100% even fretted fretboard. It's nice and quick. These frets responding well. One more SG to do on it, but then there's all the polishing stage, which is the third and final stage of the neck treatment. It's quite tiring after you've done 2 or 3 guitars in a row. I'll probably leave the rest of this. We'll stop here, and we've done the next one. Got a couple of other things to do, and that will be it for the day. I'm getting tired now. Last fret of this guitar. Okay, so there we are, frets reprofiled. Hey, here we are getting ready to polish out 3 vintage SGs one by one. Obviously this is the cherry one. I'll take off the list of things to do, and yeah, we're just going to get cracking on these things, and I'm going to use possibly, I don't know, up to 3 or so bits of sandpaper on each. And the trick here, where is my thing? Hold on. Oh yeah. Okay, so the trick here is we've got to, when we, okay, how do I describe it? Okay, so having leveled the frets, we've left a thin line of really severe scratches along the top of these frets, although we've reshaped them, and the amount of scratching from this file left is minimal, but there is nonetheless still some there. And the job now is we have to replace the scratching left by that file by using enough of this 320 to get rid of all of that scratching, and then once we've done that, we then use enough of this 600 grit to get rid of the 320, and when we've done that, we're going to use the micro mesh papers to polish it up to a shine, and then finally at the end of that we'll use the Dremel to put the last bit of shine on. So the real critical thing here is the divide, or the boundary between this one and this one. If we don't get this right, if we're not successful with 320 in removing all of the marks from this file, we will carry on through this entire process, including the Dremel, and end up polishing frets with still some tiny nicks from this file on it. And what will that mean is that you won't even see it until you try and play it, and then the strings will catch in those little tiny little scratches, and it will just ruin the whole experience. And the reality is you'll have to go right back through the polishing process and start that again. So I'm going to use a combination of discipline and patience and a little magnifying glass to make sure that I don't move forward to the 600 paper until I'm absolutely confident that this paper has removed all of these marks. And it really does take some determination. Okay, so I'm just going to begin by using my fingertips and using the paper, kind of letting my fingers run over the fret, because what we don't want to do is we do not want to put a load of any flat spots on top of the frets. So the job here is to take away all those scratches whilst polishing the fret, or whilst beginning to polish the fret, but also to do it in a way that takes or scratches all the frets evenly. So we don't want any one we don't want to stay on any spot and wear it down, because then we'll create uneven frets again. So the idea is pretty much to do everything, make sure everything gets a similar amount. And to do that, I've masked this off because I need to run off the end here. This is pull a lot of the sandpaper stuff, or the abrasive stuff, off sandpaper, and we'll end up with it on the fretboard, or on the paper actually, and we'll need to get rid of that at some point with a brush, and go the other way when necessary. And I'm going to not even do a visual check until I've used up 2 pieces of this paper. So I'm going to use this, completely wear it out. It's always hard to get to the first and the last one in this process. The first and last frets always tend to get ignored. So you can give them a little bit of extra special attention, notwithstanding that we still want as even a cover as possible. And then I'm going to stop when that paper's worn out, which it is. I'm just going to take the guitar and brush off the dust at a low level, because I don't want to breathe it in particularly. Then we just get a second piece of 320 and just again continue. Now towards the end of this will be the point at which I'm going to have a look and see if we've how we stand, whether we've got any of those file scratches still left. And if we have, we'll use the third piece and give it a bit more treatment. You can't really go too wrong here. This is taking off some metal, of course it is, it's quite abrasive, but it's taking off a fairly even amount all round because of the way I'm doing it here, making sure that everything gets similar treatment, nothing focused on for too long in one space. Coming towards the end of this second piece of 320, worn it out completely, pretty much lost all its abrasive powers. Now I'm going to brush it off again, and this time I'm going to have a look. And this means or requires a change of spectacles, I think. So I'm going to use my close-up reading glasses. I'm going to also use the magnifying glass and just get up. Oh, yeah, hold on. Here comes lunch. Back in a sec. Yes, little break there for some cheese on toast. Right, so this is the spot where we do the first close-up check with our special spectacles, and I'm just taking note here that I'm tearing. If you find yourself ripping up the masking tape, take some time out, just cover it up again or stick it down or whatever you need to do. Sometimes it sticks up and you need to just flatten it out. Yeah, make a point of stopping to cover it up some more, because what you can't afford to have is any of this going through to the fingerboard, because that's the end of the game if you do. So I'll have a close look at these now, and as I said, it's going to require some brutal honesty. There's no point convincing yourself that you're at a certain stage when you're not. You know, if it takes 5 more minutes to do another going over with the 320, then you need to do that, instead of moving forward with any tiny little marks on it. The thing with this is you'll be able to spot the fret leveling file marks. They're quite clearly, some of them, if you spot them, they may still have a bit of marker pen in them, in which case they'll be easy to spot, but either which way they will look very different from the 320 scratching, and I can see I can see a spot right there, so I'm just going to mark it for my own interests. Now, funnily enough, after all of that, it's just a little tiny spot, and there may be, sometimes it's quite common to find them around the end. As I said, they're really difficult to get to, but there's a couple of little bits there, and actually there's a couple extra bits on the last 2 frets as well, which I can probably see if I just look with my normal eyeballs, and that just tells me that we're not quite there yet. We're not far off. You can see it's mostly clustered around there. But you know what's great is, so you know, we've got all the time in the world. We've got enough sandpaper. Let's grab another piece of it and let's just do some more at this end. Obviously we'll try and keep it constant all the way through, but you know, we know where we've got to concentrate. Well, at least certainly we know where we've got to check again. And then I'll just spread out to make sure we get all of the frets involved in this, so we don't focus on any one more than the others. Basically, I'm pretty confident now that we will be at a place with this one now that we can just move forward to the 600, because the marks that were left behind were so tiny that this last bit of work now will definitely have taken care of them, and we'll be ready to move up the process. And I'm going to have to do this 3 more times today to do all the rest of the guitars I've got here. That serves me right for buying so many. Okay, I'm going to just brush this again. I've got my cat here with me, and she's the mummy of the kittens. Well, they're not kittens anymore, but she's sitting on top of the radiator I brought out here, and she's definitely not happy with her kittens. She's totally disowned her teenagers. I just can't bear to be around them. So for her, being out here in the shed with me is quite a nice way of avoiding being with her kids. I suppose what normally happens is that they get given away, don't they? Go to new homes, but in her case, the little swines have carried on living with her, which must be the worst of all possible outcomes. Okay, I'm fine with that. So I'm just going to grab my 600 papers now, and I'm going to use a bit of pointed foam, and this will be quite a bit easier now to go from the 320 scratches now to the 600. Alright girl, if you're not frightened, that's quite good. So I've been off work for a week and doing a lot of guitar work in that time. And the downside of it is I'm left with a load of video that I've got to upload to YouTube. A hell of a lot of video, in fact. A real backlog. So I'm currently listing some guitars without any video to go with them, but it's just the way it has to be. I don't have the broadband down here to do it. Now she's on top of my Sony speaker, my bass woofer. Okay, I'm going to stop there for my 600. Chuck that out of the way. Now I'm going to move to the micro mesh papers, and I'm going to spend a bit of extra time on this jump now from 600 to 1500, which is the next one down. But after that, it'll be a fairly brisk run through. Having a look for a second. I've only got 2 sets of strings left, so I can't do all these guitars anyway. I've got 2 I can do, so I guess one of them will probably be this one, and the other one I suspect will be the black one. And the reason for that is that the white one, I'm going to do some more work to try and remove strange discoloration on the back. Okay, so there's my long period of time doing the 1500. Now we'll whiz on to the 1800. Begin the rundown. Now for me, you might think, oh yeah, it's working. You might think, yeah, this is a real labour of love. And you could imagine how, if you didn't see this happening, how would you know what it involved and the amount of time and effort involved? And you wouldn't know. And the reason I paid this much attention to it is because what I'm learning over the time doing this is that this bit here, that I'm doing the neck, the frets and the neck treatment, not only takes care of the physical, the sort of biggest part of your relationship with the guitar, which is the physical part, but it also technically prepares the guitar neck for setting action in whichever way you want to set it. So it gives you that platform. And what I'm finding is, and it's brilliant to be able to say this, every guitar that I'm doing it on, I'm now getting absolutely consistently brilliant results. No matter what the cheapness of the guitar is, it just doesn't really factor in it. It's, you do this work and you can turn the cheapest, nastiest budget guitar into a beautiful instrument. You can't make it have miraculously good pickups out of the blue, but you certainly can make the neck and fingerboard part of it feel as good as anything you'll probably pay loads of extra money for. So having done it, I don't know, maybe close to 50 times and got the same consistent results, it's proved to me, as much as I need proving, that this is a really effective way to do it. So I take this amount of time to get this right and pay this amount of attention, because I consistently see the reaction, whether it's face to face or whether I hear it by way of feedback. But the reaction when somebody plays a guitar that's been set up this way is just amazement, and it's a really, really great thing to be able to do in your, what do I call it, second job, hobby. And like, for example, tomorrow, John, the customer, is coming back to pick up his 3 guitars, and I'm really looking forward to his reaction, seeing what it's like for him to I'm hoping to fall back in love with his 3 guitars. He's got a few, and these 3 were, I guess they'd taken a bit of a back seat because he'd fallen out of love with them, you might say. And I'm hoping that I've given them a kind of new lease of life. It'd be really great to see how he finds them. And I think that it's priceless to be able to do that. Where are you going, Mrs.? Look, why don't you sit down here? Look, I put this here. Bolly. She's just looking for places to be, but I made her a nice nest on top of the stool. I think she's looking for somewhere that she can hide away from her kids. It's not really good there, is it? It's a bit wobbly. There you go. Come here. Psst, psst. Come here. Come on. Bolly. Bolly. Psst, psst, psst. Come on. Come on. Down here. Psst, 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 psst. No, she's determined to go and explore her own way. Right, there we go. Almost there. What I might well do, might I? No, I was going to say I might sort of stop and do the same process now on the rest of the guitars, but it just means I have to stop and start the, keep stopping and starting the video, which seems a bit silly really. So, in the interest of continuity, I will get the Dremel up. I think what I'm going to do is, I'm going to put on a new wheel. We've got a couple of, 2 or 3, in fact, enough. We've got enough new wheels to put on there, so time to get a shot of this slightly duffed up one. And they only cost I don't know, a £5 for 3 or something like that. And each one lasts for approximately 2 or 3 guitars, so it's not a bad. I mean, you could make them last longer. They just get a bit harder to use. So yeah, got quite a good economy. Come on, little screw, off you come. Just keep all the bits. Yeah, so if I get most of these done this week, or before I go back to work, then I guess I'll have to be on the lookout for some new guitars, because being Christmas and all that, I've forgotten that with Christmas coming up, I expect it's likely that there's going to be more demand, I suppose. I hadn't really thought about it or considered getting prepared for it in a sort of commercial way, the way normal people do when they run businesses. Right, where did she end up? Okay, she's behind the bike on top of the archery target. It's a nice private little spot. I'll have to remember to check in there before I leave at the end of this working day, otherwise I'll lock her in for the night, which she'd probably enjoy actually, given how little she's enjoying being around her tons. Right, so never quite sure what to be doing here. I'm going to try a different goo this time. I'm going to try a G10 finishing compound, and in fact what I'll do is I'll just put it on like that, trying ways to speed things up. What I don't quite know is which of these compounds. We've done to about 12,000 with the paper here, and it would be a pity if these compounds actually represented a lower grit number than this, i.e. more abrasive, because we'd be going backwards. But I can't really, I'm not sure I can find out, I'm not sure it says on here what that is. Say equivalent to, no, nothing. So it tells you how to use it, but it doesn't tell you what grit it's equivalent to. So anyway, seems to have worked so far, so I'm going to make a bit of noise. The only piece of advice I've got on this particular job is have your wheel as far out from the chuck as possible to give you, so you don't have to be pointing like that, you can have quite a long reach. And also do this job, never do it with just one hand, always two hands, because you inevitably will run the wheel off the edge here and it will snatch, and as soon as it snatches it will throw the Dremel onto the fretboard. If the Dremel metal chuck here spinning hits the frets, you will literally be back to square one, levelling the frets again and going through all of that process we've just been through, which you imagine is just soul destroying, so let's not do that. Now the other thing is this, the wetter you use this stuff, and the G10 is quite liquid, you just splatter it everywhere. It's the way it goes. And also with a new wheel, it will also chuck off loads of cotton as well, but we'll get used to it. So you can see that second hand, or the other hand there, steadying this, so whatever happens I'm not going to bang this chuck onto the metal of the fret. Can't afford to, unless I've got several hours to waste. So the good thing now is that we're in the final stages of sorting out the 90% of crappy uneven frets on this guitar. You know, so not only have we levelled all the frets, we've also taken out any other surface imperfections, like worn patches or chips or dents from things being dropped on the guitar. So it's a complete refresh of the frets. The wind's getting up outside as well. The winter is finally arriving, I think. A mucky process. Mucky but effective. Nearly done. Everything around covered in slime, but that's okay, it will come off. So I'm just going to use a really dirty rag here to get the bulk of the goo off, and we'll give it a proper final clean up later on. It's all over here as well, but that's fine. So what we've got is bugger, not what we wanted to do. Now here's where I break my poor tired old knees rescuing the sandpaper, which I will need for the next stage of the process. Right, so having done that, you can see what a mess it makes, but then we're on to the good bit, which is go around the back. Turn it flat on its face if you like. Go around the back and so much paper on this bit. Tear off, but don't pull off. Just kind of split apart the tabs that we did. And this has got some goo on there, but it's okay. So the reason I did those tabs is to make it easy to do this. It just saves a little bit of frustration and time. So you don't do that, basically. That's not the way to do it, because you end up having to pick at the paper then. Gently. So it was attempting to keep it, to make it a bit easier. So that you can probably hear the wind kicking up now. So tomorrow I'm actually going out to meet some people in a band down in Cornwall. I may have said this already, but it's quite an interesting one for me. Having been a bedroom guitar player most of my life, and always having a kind of sense that I'm not great at YouTube learning. I can learn how-tos from YouTube; they're quite good for that. But when it comes to guitar playing, I find it difficult to sit for hours listening to somebody go 4th fret, 3rd finger, 5th fret, 5th finger, 5th fret, 9th finger, 9th fret, finger on the 7th. You know, even Justin Sandico, who's a very good teacher and runs a fantastic channel. There are even times where his description of the chords or the fingering he's doing kind of just leaves me standing at times, and I get completely frustrated because I can't follow it. I'm much more. I realised from watching those kind of videos that I'm very much more a visual learner. So if I see you doing it, I can work it out. But if you tell me 5th fret, 9th finger, 8th finger, 4th fret, 4th pinky on the little I find that leaves me lost and confused. So and for that reason, I suppose it's better to play with other people, because that's the way I learn probably better, is playing with people and them showing me some things. So it's quite exciting to be reaching that age 51 and saying, right, I'm not going to. I really enjoy the guitar. I'm not going to go to my grave not having gone out and played with some other human beings. So it was a bit of a bucket listy sort of thing. But as with all these things, you know, you can be tied up with a surprising amount of nervousness and self-talk, or whatever they say, you know, in a dialogue. But anyway, having overcome that, I've now agreed to go along and meet with these people and presumably take the guitar and play a bit tomorrow, so see where that goes. It's a mixture of nerve-wracking and quite exciting in a sort of 16-year-old schoolboy sort of way. And I think that probably every musician realises that at some point, whether it's putting out their album or this, being on stage or even just playing in a band. It's quite vulnerable. I mean, it's quite you can feel very vulnerable putting yourself on the line and playing in public. And understand why lots of people don't. Right, okay, so pretty much all done on this. It's a bit still very mucky all round, so I'm going to get green cloth and give it some once over. I'm going to need to replenish my industrial sized naphtha bottle in a minute. Luckily I've got more. I suspect that's going to be a very regular purchase for me. I've got some super glue there I've got to scratch off. It's always hard to put the nut back on with super glue because it's almost guaranteed you're going to get some residue come through somewhere. Super glue gives off a strange vapour which then crystallises on surfaces, and you've probably seen it. It makes a very odd bloom sort of thing on nearby surfaces. But anyway, so here we have it. The guitar with everything given a quick once over with naphtha cleaning fluid. Take away all the goo from the polishing process. And believe me, it's plenty of goo. You will get very dirty doing this if you do it much. Now what I really need is some new cloths, because these are difficult to bring to a polish or bring to a shine once you've got naphtha all over it. It's good for cleaning, but it's not great for polishing up. Got a bit more masking tape stuck in here. I wouldn't want to be a helicopter pilot out on Dartmoor in this weather. Judging by that sound out there, it's somebody with a lot of guts. Right, okay, so having done that, we now have the finished article, the fret levelled, polished, that's a big beast, fret levelled and polished, ready to go. I'm not going to do anything just now with this. Am I? Actually, I think I better, because I'm planning on finishing this guitar, so there is no time like the present. So I'm just going to give myself a little diamond file. I'm just shooting up and down this joint here to take out any surplus super glue. Brilliant. It's not the most handsomest of super glue spills in the world. That's okay. We'll get it out that way. Right. Done. Okay, so get into the cracks again. Nice. Here comes the rain by the sounds of it. Oh yeah. Right. And is my kitty cat right? Yeah, she's behind there. What's she doing? Yeah, she's fast asleep. Good girl. Okay, so having done that, I'm now pretty much ready to go on to the next stage. And since we're aiming to complete guitars rather than just have loads of half-finished guitars, I might as well continue with this one. So next thing is to get back all the hardware that came with this guitar. And here it is. I'll tip it out on the deck. Just going to again clean the hardware before we put it back on. There's various bits of plastic that could do with the dust off. The weather is turning bad now, but there's absolutely no grounds for complaint. We've had the most incredibly long period of summer weather you could imagine. So it's got to come sometime to be winter. Nature and trees and animals and all that have to have a rest. Except humans don't, of course, they just carry right on. Right, and have a quick look at these hardware pieces. They're all fairly clean. Still could benefit from a little polish up here. Sometimes when they're really filthy, I'll take them completely apart. But this one is fairly newish or fairly clean, so I'm not going to do that on that. Let's give it a polish. Make it look a bit fresher. And the stop tailpiece. Right. So having done the hard fretwork, now we're in the nice position of putting it all back together again. And this is the bit where we put some strings on and put this guitar neck under load so that it will put some relief back into the neck. And then once we've got the string load on the guitar, we'll set a playing action. Sorry, we'll set the relief on the neck the way we want it, and then we'll set a playing action. Now, this is an age-old thing. There's always an argument about which way to set these things, the tunematic bridge. Some people insist that it goes with the little screws facing the nut end, and I'll do that for purity's sake. If it's my guitar, I'd probably set it with the screws facing that way, because it just makes it easier for me to reach with screwdriver. And it doesn't make any difference to the playing. It's just one of those style things, and some people can get quite sort of over perfectionist about it, or get quite upset about where it goes, which to me seems a bit over the top. Okay, so we're going to put on our strings. Nice thing about the SG is that strings are easy to load up. You can just put them through from the back, and I don't know if you can see, but my advice on these is to pull it right the way through and then pull it back an inch, and use that inch as a wind-on amount. Even if you're using something like the Easy Lock tuners, which technically sort of claim that you don't even have to wind anything on, you can just lock them in place and go. I still recommend putting them on about an inch around the spool, too much around the spool, and when people say it's basically you're building yourself a spring, that's absolutely right, and you're creating trouble, and you're basically making it almost certain that there's going to be some slippage, but stretch. And it means you're going to go out of tune quite regularly or easily. However, I think an inch is a reasonable amount, and it just gives you enough to grip, but not too much to be causing endless detuning problems. So on this end, we'll put the neck under load. We'll set the neck relief correctly, and then we'll set a playing action down at the bridge end. We'll probably aim for about 1 millimetre at the 22nd fret, which is, most people measure the actions at the 12th fret. I don't know why, but I like to measure it at the 22nd. And in doing so, once we've done that, then we'll make adjustments at the nut end, and almost without fail we will need to do that, because the nut settings on these guitars, on most if not all electric guitars, are, I won't say incorrect, because there's no correct or incorrect, they're just, the slots are so high that the guitar is harder to play than it needs to be, but possibly more importantly, it creates intonation problems, because you have to press the string so far down to reach the fret that it actually forces the string to go sharp. And it's a very common problem, and some people struggle with it for years on a guitar and just don't know why it is and can't figure it out. And I myself was one of those for a while, until I worked out what it was. And after that, I made a point of correcting it on every single guitar I've had or had through the workshop here. It contributes hugely to the playability of the guitar. And so it's also, for example, one of the key things that's going to have made the most difference to John's made in Mexico Fender Strat, which he's coming to pick up tomorrow. And I mean, there are a number of changes on that, not least the playing action itself after having levelled the frets, but probably the most significant one the most significant feeling one that will make the most difference to the playing is the setting of the nut slots to the correct height, because suddenly the guitar becomes easy to play at the nut end. But it really is a substantial change, and sometimes I almost get nervous doing it, because their memory of what the guitar feels like to play will still be very strong, and the guitar that they get back, whilst being considerably improved, will at the same time feel very strange. And in a way, we don't want to. We've got to be kind of considerate about that, because it's all very well improving things, but if it feels so alien that somebody almost doesn't recognise their own guitar, that can be quite too much. But so far it seems to be working okay, and not being so different that people don't prefer the new version. Come along, get in there. Right, so we are strung. And to begin with, I've got this little habit now of leaving about 1 inch of string hanging out over the ends. I don't leave that there. I hate having string dangling around, but I leave it there for now until I'm absolutely certain that what we've got is what all the setup is the way we want it. If we have to take the strings off and put them back on, having this extra bit of string is really, really helpful. So, strings on, I'm doing a bit of bending, stretching, I should say, to take out some of the natural stretch in new strings, pulling these little spools tighter. What you'll notice is that it's hitting the deck, so it's going to need some action setting in this. And I'm going to use the flat screwdriver. Actually, I need a slightly finer one, which I haven't got knocking about there. Have I? Oh yes, I have. Let's use that one instead on a different screwdriver. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just wind up the Tune-o-matic bridge to set myself a playable basic action, and I'm not being too, well, I was going to say I'm not being too specific about what it is, but I might as well check what it is in millimetres. I'll just do it visually really to begin with. So, right now it's not playable. If I start bringing it up now, I can see the bass strings lifting off, and I can do a quick check on my top fret, which is actually 22nd, and it's 1mm, just over 1mm, and then I'll just bring this up to, well, I won't do it that way, but turn the damn thing would help, bring this up to match. And back to a bit of tugging, and then we'll go for tuning it up. Put the whole of the neck under pressure, tension. Beautifully out of tune still. Again, you'll get loads of stretch for the first few minutes, so we keep on pulling the strings just hard enough to stretch them, but not hard enough to break them, ideally. That's pretty demoralising too if you pop them at this point. So for an SG, that actually, strangely enough, feels like quite a high action, even though technically, oh, what have we got now? No, actually it's gone up a bit now. Wish I could see properly. That is, it's actually 1.5mm. So I'm going to take it down a little bit on both sides, because we can get away with it on this guitar with such a well-levelled neck. This guitar is capable of handling an action height of around about 1mm. So and again, take this opportunity to give it a pull. We should eventually, not too long now, run out of stretch. These will stay in tune more. So at 1mm, ladies and gentlemen, we have a very, very low action. The question is, it's all very well having a low action, but does it play the notes? Right, so we've got very low action, and we've got the notes starting to struggle a bit. Now on a guitar like this, with a neck that is adjustable along its whole length, that slight choking could be simply because there isn't enough relief in this neck. That's one of the things that we can adjust. So I'm looking down this neck, and actually it's incredibly straight. So I'm going to put in a little bit of relief into this neck with a truss rod. Interestingly, what we'll probably find is as soon as I do that, we're going to we'll see that those little buzzy notes will probably take care of themselves. So I'm going to, what am I going to do? Some relief. So I'm going to go counterclockwise. You can always get that wrong, but hey. So I'm going to do a quarter of a turn, well, not even quarter, about an eighth of a turn counterclockwise. Now we had some choke notes up here. Interestingly, what it's done is it's moved the slightly choked notes up there a tiny bit, but that's okay because it's still probably too low in action, and I'm going to take it back up to just over 1mm because that was a bit ambitious. I'll do it on both sides. Again, sort of by eye really. Okay, quite comfortable with that. Still very, very straight. Well, not very straight, but still possibly a bit straighter than we might want. So I'm still going to try it one more turn, see if we get a little bit more relief in that neck. In which case we won't have to do anything with the action. One more look down the neck. Okay, I can see some relief in it now. Actually, interesting, it's more on one side than the other, but that's often the way. That'll do in relief terms. And I'm going to measure, where has it gone? Measure the height, the action height on treble side, and it is on 1mm, which probably still a little bit too extreme. So I'm just going to take that up the tiniest bit. Add a tune again. Right, so that's that for now, but we also have quite a bit of adjustment to do at the nut end now, and that is in itself going to make a difference to the playing action. And I'm going to take a break when I go into the bathroom, and then I'll be back to cut the nut slots here to get this right. And once we've done that, we can then go to the intonation, and then we'll be finally finished. See you in a minute. Hey-ho! Every time I go to put on some music when I'm doing this, it suddenly occurs to me I can't do it, because on video, on YouTube videos, you get done, or you get your videos shut down, or other things happen if you used copyright music. On YouTube has, or Google I should say, has an algorithm that it uses to check, and it's able to identify music on a video and then hit you with either a request to take down the video, or forces you to have advertising in favour of the copyright holder, which is fair enough. But every time I just get ready to put music on, then I remember that. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to set the nut action, and I know for a guitar like this with a setup of around 1.5 mm max action at this end, we're looking for about 0.25 of a millimetre clearance over the first fret at this end. In fact, that isn't what we've got, and we probably, let's go to 0.5. Oops, let's get that little thin one caught. It's actually a little higher than 0.5, and it's probably something like 0.6. So the point being is that this nut, no, not nut height, or the slot heights in the nut are, it's actually 0.6, so it's around about just over 0.6. Now, this so-called microphone stand is really not the best idea of a camera stand I've ever had. And even if I undo it now and oh we get there, oh blimey, oh heck, right, sorry about this. Right, yes, so if that's 0.6, we're looking for 0.25. Basically we're saying this is over twice the height that it should be, this gap, and that is enough to mess up the intonation but also make the guitar hard to play. So having ascertained that it is significantly higher than it should be, and you might say to me, well, where do you get the 1.6, where do you get the 0.25 from? Well, I'll give you an example. If you ignore the nut for a minute and you go to put on a capo, and let's say you put a capo on 2nd fret, go and measure what the gap is under this new first fret, and it's just a shade over, well, it's just on 0.25. In fact, it's a little lower than 0.25, it's 0.2, right? And which means this guitar will play beautifully. Notice, nothing's choked. This guitar will play with a 0.2 action here, all the way happily for the rest of the neck. So I'm aiming for 0.25 to give myself a little conservative bit of leeway here. And how do I do it? Well, here's how I do it. Slack off the strain. Get the tool you're going to use. In this case, I've got a set of files here which I've discovered work best with using them one out of sequence, slightly out of sequence for what they were intended for. They're supposed to be for a 9 gauge, but they don't actually work very well unless you use them out of sequence and have an extra thing standing by for the last in the sequence. Anyway, point being is I'm going to, I'm now using this welding nozzle cleaner as my saw, nut file or whatever you want to call it, and what I do is so I do a little bit of cutting and then I wind it up to full tension and I measure the gap, and there's loads of room, so I'll take it off again and I'll keep cutting away a little at a time, and I'm wanting to do it at a slight angle tilting back so that the string runs upwards and off the front of the slot rather than flat. Doesn't have to be precisely in tune, it just needs to be enough to be up the approximate tension that it should be under. And we still have some way to go, so I'm going to use a combination of the next slot size because it cuts quite quickly, but I'll use the round thing as well just to take a bit, or shape the slot the way I want it. Quite hard to use these things, particularly those things are quite cheap, but when you get to the thinner ones they're impossible to use, whereas the equivalent ones of these actually are quite workable. So back to your spirit level gauge thingy, you know. Feeler gauge is the word I'm looking for. Okay, so quite a lot of room yet to go. So I'm just going to keep working away at this slot. Remembering the principle, you can always take a bit more off, you can't put it back on. When it's gone, you've gone too far, it's time to go looking for a new nut. Or use the time-honoured baking powder and super glue get out of jail free trick, which does work very well, but it looks a bit of a mess on a black nut as we've got here. This doesn't cut very well, these things, that's the only, they're cheap. £4 compared to about 70 or something. We're getting there slowly. It really is a slow process. So again, more reasons why this takes quite a lot of time to get this. But think about the investment. This is your guitar that you're going to play for and enjoy playing for many years. Why wouldn't you spend an hour or so with it now to get it just right? Okay, still a bit of room to press down. So, as I say, I always recommend you just make sure you've got plenty of time to spare to do this. No good will come of rushing it. Like I say, you're cutting away a little bit at a time. It will speed up as you get down to the thinner strings. Still some to go. remember reading somewhere in the past, some people used to say that they used to think it was the correct thing to do was to have the string sitting half out of the nut, so you know the top 50% of the string was exposed and only 50% sat in the little groove. I never quite understood what the sort of argument or reasoning behind that was, other than it looked sort of tidy, and I think people thought that maybe it would stop the string binding. The thing that stops the string binding is cutting the slot with the right size tool and having some graphite in there as well. But if it's really important to you, you can attempt to arrive at the situation where the string sits atop the little groove, but you have to take the action down by filing away from underneath the nut, which means taking it out, and that assumes that all the other slots are cut correctly in relation to each other, and they never are, usually in my experience, well, often aren't, let's put it that way. So I think we are now at our 0.25 comfortably, and I'm going to stop there. I'm also going to pull that one off to the side because I want some space now to work on the next one, which I'll just do a quick check. Now that it's still off, but it's not as far off as the previous one, so we don't want to spend so long cutting away at this one. And bear in mind this is quite a tight fit, so I'm just doing a bit of wobbling from side to side, give myself hopefully a bit of space. Still some room. Again, we can always go to the second one on this collection to help. Just is that the second or the first one? Come on, let's get this right. Never get these quite right. Get out of the way. Yeah. Still some more. So you know, I wonder what guitar tech is doing with their time, if they're doing this properly. This is what they're doing. No quick shortcut for this. Almost there. Fraction of a millimetre. Well, it's all in fractions of a millimetre basically, but the tiniest little smidgen. I reckon that'll be it. Well, I tell myself it's it, but actually still room to go. So much as I'd like it to be it, it isn't it yet. So I'm going to keep on going. It's quite nerve-wracking in some ways when you get low down in the, you know, you're thinking, God, surely I'm there. If I go any more, I'm going to run out, and it's going to hit the wood. this is it, that'll do. Just check it here again. Quite a load of room, I can see the shadow under it, so I'll undo that. We'll switch over to the next size on this one and just go straight to it with that one. Again, has a sort of bit too snug for my liking. Loads of room. More. And still loads of room. Where's the third one? Come on. Third one, thank you. More to go. Just non-stop. But extremely satisfying when you get it done. Okay, we're nearly there now on these three, and we'll switch over to the other three. Tiniest bit and we're away. Come on, you can stop now, really you can. That'll be it. Lovely, that'll do. Now while I've got these three off, I'm just going to put some graphite into the slots for lubrication purposes. Get in there. And then I'm going to drop these into place and wind them up. Oh God, it always gets spiked. I've gone and blown away my graphite man. I got unsettled by being attacked by my string stalks. Right, those three are done, and I'm going to cut their killer stalks off because I don't want to be hurt anymore. It's going to blind me with it. Right. Also, you can just check at this point. incredibly low. Yep, plays really, really, really well. Okay, so that's part of it done. Now we go on to the next bit. And the next bit is hang on. Next bit, we're going to take off top 2, work on the G string from this side. Loads of room, change over our file, get G file out, put it off to one side and go to work. The G is often the one that causes most problems for this very reason, so I'm going to be really careful to get this the right height. Got quite a long way to go with this G. See how quickly you can get into the routine of this. Nearly there. Right, that's pretty good. I'm going to stop, I think, one more. Very, very close to being on target with that one. That'll be it. That's all I'm going to do. Not too fine. See, it's making a monkey out of me. A bit more to go. Perfectionist, can't stop until I get it exactly right. Right, this has got to be right this time. Well, still a tiny bit. So there's no way of rushing this, see? It's got to be it now, it has to be it. Now I will stop. I'll do. Ah, it's got me again! Right, I'm now cutting these things off early because I'm sick and tired of being injured. Anyway, I'm not going to be taking these strings off from here on inwards. Before I do that one, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? No, I'm not going to do it up. I want to put some thingy in there. Okay, change over. I would like to get this one finished too. Oh yeah, measure what this one is. Okay, loads of room. Almost. Almost. Okay, stop there. Change over, last file. Right, here we go. Head for the hills, final countdown. we are very close to completion. Obviously we're not quite there yet. One more go, very close. Okay, bit of a pull. Terrific. That's that bit done. Let's put these away for a minute. We will need them should we do another guitar tonight, which we may do. But I'm concentrating predominantly on this one. Now what I didn't do, of course, as you noticed, I didn't put any graphite underneath the strings. Small detail, but why not? Since we've got it, let's use it. And we'll be confident that all our string slots are fully lubricated. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are now approaching our final destination, which is going to be Intonation Central. And just to do that, we're going to need the amp, and we're going to need a cable and a tuner. And the tuner is going to come from here, and the amp is going to come from there. Put this up on the desk, workbench. Okay. Oh, right, I need a screwdriver. Not the screwdriver I really want to be thinking about, because it's pointing the wrong way and I don't like it when it points the wrong way. But there are options here that I can possibly use, like that one. Maybe a simple solution. Long-winded, but it may work. Right, let's get the power on. Let's get the tuner working. There's the tuner. Okay, so in order to get the intonation correct, we're going to adjust. Oh, I'm going to point you at the action. I think what we're going to do to get the intonation right, we're going to. I'm probably dazzled by this light now. Going to point. No, what we're going to do to get the intonation right, we're going to make sure that the length, each string is the correct length for this guitar. What do we mean by that? Well, what we mean is, though this the neck is built for a specific scale length, meaning it's built for a particular one of a series of scale lengths. There are a number of common ones for guitars, and I can't remember what the SG one is now. Anyway, the neck is built according to a formula, and part of the formula that determines how quickly, or the rate at which the frets get closer together over the neck, is determined by the scale length that it's designed for, and the scale length is the distance, the playing length of the string from the front of the nut at that end there down to the bridge at this end, and although the neck is made for a kind of nominal scale length, in reality you put the bridge on that centre line, but in reality each string has a slightly different length because of its thickness and the way it behaves. So we get the opportunity to set the exact length of each one. We don't do it with a ruler. What we do is we use a tuner to do it. So first of all we tune the string we're concerned about. We'll start with the top E and we'll tune it to, we'll get perfectly tuned to the E on the harmonic ping on the 12th fret. Hello. Now if the string is exactly the right length, the fretted note on the 12th fret will be the same as the harmonic note. There's the harmonic. There's the fretted note, and it's flat. Tune it again. Actually, it's all right. You see that it's spot on. Definitely flat. So what we do, flat means the string's too long marginally, so we adjust. We don't use this, we use this. We're going to adjust the screw here one way or another. Would be better off to have my other glasses on for this. We're going to shorten the string length, and to do that, if I can even get it into place, this screwdriver won't do it. I'm going to try this one. My cat wants to go out in a minute. So I said we needed to shorten it, right? There's not a lot of room, so shortening. I hate this. Wrong way. I need to go anti-clockwise to shorten it, and it's a hell of a noise. Still too long, so I'm going to anti-clockwise bring it in some more, whilst making a hell of a racket. What a hateful thing to have to do, this stupid primitive mechanism with horrible daddy long legs in your hair, on your scalp I should say. Now, what's worrying me is I'm about to run out of intonation room on this particular one. It's just such a wrong angle to do anything, and this is why I really don't appreciate having those stupid screws facing that direction. Point made. More. It's so inconvenient how to do this without slipping off and bashing into something. I'm going the wrong way. That's not helpful, is it? Right, I think I've just reached the limits of the turning, the intonation possibilities with this pretty useless device. Spot on, thankfully. I was going to get a bit annoyed. Short. Both of those two have to come up, so anti-clockwise on both. Actually, it's not, it's clockwise if you're looking at the screw head. Bolly, my cat's in here and it's bonfire time out there, I think. frets all together. Yeah, we're quite low. Too low. Come on, calivanting onwards, forwards you go. I find me anyone who's got a screwdriver that can do that well. So off the mark. It ain't funny. Sometimes you get weird things like this. It's just hopeless setup with this kind of technology. I'm now cranking a really stiff screw that doesn't want to go anywhere, so it's going to start chopping the metal on the screw head. Makes it look pretty ugly. It's not going to get there, is it? Always the way. And then I end up having to take this thing off and altering the direction of the... It's so annoying. I tell you, every single guitar this seems to happen on. Let me just check the D again. See, that D is really still flat. So here we go. This is the really annoying part. This is where we run out of time, everything. Okay, because now I'm going to have to completely turn the entire, all the saddles around to buy myself a bit more intonation room to get this done properly, and in pursuit of correct intonation. So why is it like this? Well, I can tell you why it's like it, because the bridge is fitted in the wrong place. Isn't that funny? So I have to now use whatever device or trick I can do to wind off all these strings far enough to get a block under here, foam block, and that foam block will then let me hopefully pull off the bridge. You can see where the screwdriver's been digging at this thing. So I get the bridge off. Now I have to remove the retaining clip. If I can do it. Come on. Remove the retaining clip. Okay, and then we know that we want these bottom three to come off and to basically pull them apart. So I'm going to just kind of lever them off if I can. One. Two. They're really hard to even get out. That's what's so absolutely annoying at this point in time. So I'm kind of using the pliers to lever one part of it against the other part so we can try and get this thing off. See, it's just an absolute pain in the arse, honestly. I mean, how is that supposed to be so difficult? Right, so now I've got to take each one of these little things, which I've now wound far too tightly into itself, so I'm going to have to grab hold of this, try and unscrew it. Which, even on a good day, it isn't easy. See, this is tightening up before we even got anywhere, so the tolerance on this isn't exactly right. How are you supposed to adjust that if it doesn't even fit? Honestly, it's infuriating. Look at that. Let me put this on the other way around. And what this will do, it will give us a bare 1 millimetre extra travel on these things, which is hardly anything. But again, doesn't really go very far. So we're basically, you start off with all these things pointing, sorry, 3 of them pointing in the opposite direction, or 3 of them pointing one way, 3 of them pointing the other, these little saddles, and now we've taken it off and we're going to put it back together again with all of them pointing the same way. That's if I can even get this back on, because it never wants to go back on once you've taken it off, because it's only, you only get it there under force. There's no clever, there's no gentle way of getting it back in place. And then, once we've done that, this time probably we end up scratching the thing again. Been trying to do it like that. Once we've got all of these turned back to front, we'll put it back on, tighten the strings up and do the whole thing again. But I would so much rather doing it from the back, because if I was, then I'd have to intonate everything again. I don't know why, it's this bit that really does annoy me. Been here so many times, got to the same place and discovered that it won't go because there's not enough intonation room. And very often, even when we get there, it doesn't automatically work even after that part. So, you know, this is probably over 2 hours now we've been going since even starting doing the fret levelling. So we're almost there. It's the last little bit, but it's infuriatingly stupid. It really doesn't help to have these saddles so stiff. Oh Lord, don't go in sideways. This is trying to go in wonky. Right, thank you. Now we've got to put the retaining clip back in. Retaining clip back in, which is the same on both sides. Which goes in one side, over the top, and then gets pushed in with the pliers on the other side. Right, retaining pin in place, back under here. Slide it down into place, pull out our block, put in our other restraining thing and start tying, tuning up again. Now we'll just remember that it's the 3 bottom strings we'll need to do again. I'm trying to wind these in, by the way, by keeping tension on the strings, because what I don't want is for coils to get too slack again. Okay, so we're now back somewhere. Back to the tugging routine. God, will we ever get this done? Right, there we go again. Still got a bit of a distance to travel. Try and do this as cleanly as possible. I don't want to bust anymore. It's just a stupid design. I'm sorry, but pretty much run out of space again. It's just awful. Now I can, as far as I can see, I've got no more room at all, and I've literally got no way of getting any more leverage onto this. How many times do I hate you? There's no more turns I can get out of this. That's it. It's had its moved as far as it will go, which is rubbish. It's not even vaguely near the front of the thing. Well, we're almost there. Tiny bit more. Damn you tunematic bridges made by Stone Age idiots. So inaccurate and so clumsy and so difficult to use. Well, that's on its stops as well, which is probably where it should be, but that's okay now. I'm being finicky, but sharp. This one's sharp. How bizarre. And go the other way under considerable duress as well. Stop. So I would say we've almost got there, but for the D string, which is a little bit back from where it should be. That's because there's no forward room available. That's the payoff when you get those chords exactly in tune an octave apart. So there we have it. After all that hard work, we are done on the intonation. We've got frets levelled, frets polished, frets levelled, frets reprofiled, frets polished. We have got the neck relief set, we've got the action set down here, we've got the action set correctly at the nut slots lubricated, and that, my dear folks, is pretty much everything done. And all that remains now is just to put on these bits of plasticky stuff and get the hell out of here. Sort of. I'm not going anywhere exactly. Yeah, but that's it. That's the whole shebang. So that's over 3 hours for this particular guitar. You know, it's one of those things that makes me think, well, maybe I've got 2 more of these SGs to do, and maybe I'll just start by reversing the bridge saddles just to begin with. I mean, why go through that stupid hassle if they're all going to be the same? And actually, if I'm honest, I think most of them that I've come across, I seem to remember doing something very similar. So I think that's what I'm going to do before I get caught out again. Might as well. I think also, let's assume that somebody else might want to do work on the guitar another time. I think I might put the bridge on the other way round as well, because there's no real good, in fact there's no good reason at all having it round the other way. It's just some sort of traditional thing that is just designed to piss you off, because you've got to get in over the top of the pickup. And people go, oh yeah, it's easy. You know, you see people in forums and they go, oh yes, but I find it's hard to get over the top of the pickups. And some smart ass goes, oh no, not at all. With my super duper sonic screwdrivery full length la-di-da machine, I have no problem at all getting over the top of the. It's like, well, you just saw that, stiff as anything, right? Almost impossible to turn those stupid saddles half the time, and then to be doing it whilst squawking against the strings because they're already in place while you're doing this. It's just no fun. There's no good reason for having it that way around. It's just, I think it's a kind of glutton for punishment would have it that way around. So there you go. That's my little rant about it. But apart from that, it's now done. And if you wonder why this is the same price or more expensive a guitar than some other vintage SGs you've seen on eBay, this is why. Because it takes time and a degree of patience and some goodwill as well, actually, to get all of this done so that it plays the way it should. Now, what I'm pleased to be able to tell you is that right now it plays beautifully, but it didn't before, and it wasn't going to without doing all that work on it, nor is any guitar, frankly. So that's what a setup does. And the funny thing is, when people, I learned recently that people, a lot of people do setups just as setups. They don't do anything to the, well, they don't do any fret leveling. And I've always called a setup which includes fret leveling, because to me there's no real point in messing about with the action or rubbing some steel wool on the frets if they're all uneven. So for me, you can't shortcut it. You've got to do the whole thing, and I just call it a setup. But I discovered that I was probably charging, I don't know, £80 less than other people doing what they called a setup and a fret dress. And I just called it a setup, which of course it was also what they call a fret dress as well. So as a result, I realised that I had to slightly increase my prices a little bit for when I'm doing setups for customers, and also obviously it's going to be reflected a little bit in the prices of the guitars I buy and sell on eBay. But you know, quality is quality, and you can't really skimp on it. So these all fit, hopefully all fit fairly nicely. Don't need to do too much. Yep. All very positive, that's good. Terrific. Do a polish down on the back. So, ladies and gentlemen, the vintage pain in the ass SG in cherry, vintage cherry. It's actually in vintage cherry. It's also a vintage cherry SG. Beautiful guitar now. But you saw it here. You saw the work that it takes to make it play the way it now does. If you are the buyer of this guitar in the end, I think you'll just get your hands on this and feel how effortless those chords now are to play on this 1.1mm action with the intonation and the nut action set perfectly. So there you go. That's a lot of hard work.